Why? We know that thou art a teacher come from God. His attention is focused, number one, on acknowledging Jesus' origin. We know that thou art a teacher come from God. He starts pleasantly, right? Rabbi, teacher. You know, if we were to get a modern-day equivalent, somebody coming up and say, hey, pastor, I found out about these things. Did you know that? You're a teacher, okay? He came pleasantly, and he also uses the pronoun we know, right? It's not that I know you're from God, we know that you are from God. So who's the we in this passage? Anyone with any sense and at least a touch of Old Testament understanding who has observed what Jesus has done could clearly recognize that he was a man who has come from God. And not only is he a man from God, he is a teacher. So during all the signs done in chapter 2, evidently Jesus was doing miracles and also bringing about teaching so that people would recognize heavenly understanding of truth. And Nicodemus caught a glimpse of who Jesus is, and he's on the right track. Number 2, he acknowledged Jesus' signs. For no man can do these miracles, the signs that thou doest, except God be with him. Notice something that he doesn't acknowledge, because it wasn't there. He doesn't acknowledge Jesus' formal teaching with other rabbis, because he didn't really have that. Oh, clearly Jesus had interaction with rabbis when he was 12 years old. In Luke, he talks to the rabbis in the temple, but he did not have formal training. But nevertheless, Nicodemus could say, you have to be someone from God, even though you don't have formal training, and clearly you're teaching because no one can do signs. I mean, it's one thing to say that somebody's a good teacher. It's another thing to be able to acknowledge that there's something powerful about him, not just in his preaching, but in his abilities to be able to touch and heal, to be able to call out and cause something to happen that you don't have the other man do not have the authority to do. And Jesus had that. And Nicodemus is catching a glimpse and coming to a level of understanding. And notice also what's different about Nicodemus from the Pharisees. He isn't quick to express, was a man with sense. And he didn't let his sin cloud his judgment. In any case, he's come to the first step of a childlike faith, and it is in truth a basic understanding and belief in that basic understanding of who Jesus is. The details of Nicodemus' words are not insignificant. They reveal to the reader everything they need to know about the type of man he was, and a hint, potentially, at why Jesus responds to him the way that he does. Let's look at Jesus' response in verse 3. Jesus answered and said unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. Notice a couple things. No return of pleasantries. And Nicodemus comes saying, hey, Rabbi, teacher, you're a teacher from God. He doesn't do that. He doesn't call him Rabbi. He doesn't build up his positional pride, you might call it. In fact, he doesn't even acknowledge anything Nicodemus has just said. Did you notice that? Not even a hint. He just hits the question Nicodemus doesn't even ask right on the head. If you're a person who comes from God, you've got to know how to get to heaven. How do I enter the kingdom? Is the question he should have asked. And you know the amount of those whom he didn't commit himself to in chapter 2, you might expect Jesus to say, finally, here comes a person that I've been waiting for. I've waited for this guy to come. And I'm looking forward to explaining to him the divine. The first topic of conversation that these